Hello and welcome to the DSR Daily for Tuesday, November 19th. I'm your host for today, Riley Fessler, joined by Minna Stein. How are you today, Minna?
I'm well. How are you?
Not too bad. No big Trump news today, which is always encouraging. Well, there's one Trump adjacent story, but I'll go ahead and just rip off that Band-Aid now.
Please.
Former Representative Matt Gaetz, selected by Donald Trump as his nominee for Attorney General, faces allegations of paying women for sex and travel, detailed by their attorney, Joel Leppard, to ABC News. The women testified to the House Ethics Committee that Gaetz paid for trips, including a January 2019 visit to New York for a Fox News appearance and the Broadway show Pretty Woman. They alleged that Gaetz frequently paid for sex, with payments disguised as general expenses, and facilitated drug use during parties. Despite years of investigation by the Justice Department and the House, no charges were filed. Gaetz has denied the allegations, calling them politically motivated, while the women maintain their encounters were consensual but emotionally impactful, requiring counseling. Yeah, I don't know. This kind of tracks with everything we know about Matt Gaetz already, or at least the rumors that have been circulating for years.
Isn't this the guy who was accused of sex trafficking a minor? I feel like this accusation is pretty meh compared to that.
This isn't the first time that Gaetz has allegedly
yes,
paid for someone to go across state lines to have sex with him. These women appear to be at least adults, which is better than, as you said, the last time. But
yeah, the last accusation was much worse.
It seems like he's just going to keep getting away with this, especially if he's made Attorney General. But I don't know if these claims kind of continue to gather steam. I can see this as being grounds to not confirm him, at least for the Senate. But considering the president is an adjudicated rapist, maybe this doesn't even matter.
Yeah, it's like we were talking about yesterday. It's Trump and Hegseth and Matt Gaetz. It's just tough for women or victims of sexual assault who are seeing all of these people be appointed to high positions who have, suffered at the hands of people like these people who are being appointed. So it's hard for many reasons, I think, to see these people get appointed to these high positions.
Right.
Not just because of their politics. The ACLU filed a lawsuit against ICE seeking information about its deportation flights, including contracts with private airlines and details about the treatment of the detainees. The lawsuit follows President-elect Trump's promises to significantly increase deportations starting on his first day in office. Advocates are concerned about secrecy surrounding ICE air operations, alleging mistreatment of migrants, including children, during deportation flights. This lawsuit is part of a broader effort to hold the government accountable and ensure transparency in deportation practices. There's a lot of organizations, as we've spoken on in the past, including the ACLU, who are scrambling to protect the lives and livelihoods of migrants in preparation of mass deportation on day one. So it's good to see the ACLU taking some action.
Well, going international for our next few stories, 45 pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong were sentenced to up to 10 years in prison under a Beijing-imposed national security law for their involvement in a 2021 unofficial primary election, sparking international condemnation. Critics, including foreign governments, the UN, and rights groups, argue the charges of conspiracy to commit subversion were politically motivated and aimed at silencing dissent. Beijing defended the sentences as necessary for upholding the rule of law, while activists and international leaders warned of worsening repression in Hong Kong under the one country, two systems framework. The harsh sentences highlight the erosion of civil liberties and democratic freedoms in the city since the law's enactment. The Hong Kong protests of several years ago, I feel like they really grabbed headlines and we were all talking about them, and then that story kind of just went away, at least here in the U.S. But it's important to remember that just because we're not reading about it in the news doesn't mean that the problem is solved. It's far from the truth. And, I just wanted to choose this story to kind of highlight that crisis, that issue is still going on with no resolution in sight. And it seems to be getting even worse.
Mm-hmm. The White House condemned a recent march in Columbus, Ohio, by a group of masked individuals carrying Nazi flags, calling it a hateful display of Nazism, anti-Semitism, and racism. White House spokesperson Andrew Bates emphasized President Biden's commitment to combating such hate and announced the administration's national strategy to fight anti-Semitism. The demonstrators, who were also reportedly armed, were briefly detained by police, but not arrested after it was determined no assault occurred. Ohio officials, including the governor, strongly denounced the march, reiterating that there is no place for hate or bigotry in the state.
Yeah, disappointing, especially for my state, but I'm not really that surprised. The last time Trump was elected, there were these kind of displays of hate as soon as he was elected because people feel emboldened that he is in the White House. I'm not surprised this happened. I doubt this will be the last time something like this takes place.
That's kind of what I was wondering about this story, like how frequent we were going to be seeing stories like this going forward.
Yeah. I guess the plus side of this one was it wasn't violent, but it's my opinion that, rallies like this are always trying to get someone else to start the violence so that these people can finish it. I mean, there's a reason they were armed. The KKK used similar tactics in the past of going through neighborhoods where they knew they were not welcome, making a grand display, and then when they were attacked, trying to play the victim. Was this kind of a similar effort? Maybe, but I don't think this is the last time we'll see something like this during the new administration, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, to round things out, Ukraine marked 1,000 days since Russia's full-scale invasion, with intense fighting continuing on multiple fronts and millions displaced or living as refugees. U.S. President Joe Biden approved the use of American missiles for strikes deeper into Russian territory, but experts doubt it will decisively shift the 33-month-long war. And actually, since I pulled this story, it's been confirmed that Ukraine has used U.S.-made ATACMS for the inside of Russia for the first time, but details are kind of scarce. As of the time of recording, the Russian statement said 6 missiles were fired, but that 5 were shot down. So that's kind of really all the details we have at the time of recording, but I'm sure more will come out about that story. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's anticipated return to the White House raises uncertainty over continued Western support, as Trump has pledged to end the war quickly without clarifying how. Both sides are escalating efforts on the battlefield ahead of potential peace talks, which remain hindered by irreconcilable demands and ongoing devastation. Yeah, I mean, I think, at least for Ukraine, I imagine they're trying to get into a better position if Trump does force peace talks, which seems to be what he wants to do. So any kind of leverage they can get in the last 2 months before he takes office, I imagine they're going to try and take any action that they can. But, it's impossible to kind of forecast where this conflict is going to go. It's been difficult to forecast for the first 1,000 days. So I doubt it's going to get any easier as this goes on. But, we always hope for a resolution. But I think most of us are fearful of the kind of resolution that President-elect Trump has in mind.
Definitely.
For this conflict. You would imagine, given his track record, that it will cede too much to Putin and Russia and not give enough consideration to the needs of Ukrainians, who are, of course, shouldn't need to be reminded, but apparently does. Ukraine being the victims of this conflict, a conflict they didn't ask for. But, the narratives, especially on the right, apparently need to be reminded of that, because the talking heads on the far right seem to think that Ukraine is somehow the aggressor in this conflict, which is ahistorical to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is all we have for you today, but we have more shows coming out later today, later in the week. So stay tuned to the DSR Network for all of that wonderful podcasting goodness. But until then, bye-bye.